Hi, and welcome to episode 1 of the 4-part series End of Life Planning. In today's episode, we'll focus on some advanced planning considerations that you can make today so that your end of life wishes are taken care of without adding additional burden to family, friends, and loved ones. This presentation is coming to you from ElderWatch, a 20-plus year collaboration between AARP and the Colorado Attorney General's Office. In addition to providing financial education materials and presentations intended for Coloradans 50+, we also have a volunteer-staffed fraud victim support helpline if you or someone you know has been the victim of fraud or a scam. If this is the case for you, please give us a call at 800-222-4444, select option 2. My name is Jessica Zawatsky. I am the program specialist for ElderWatch Colorado. And before we dig into our presentation today, I do want to remind everyone that I am not here to provide financial or legal advice. For both of these things, you should definitely consult a trained professional because everyone's situation is different. Think of our presentations as general information to help you get the process going. Welcome again to the first in the 4-part series, End of Life Planning. Today we'll go over some of the considerations you can make in advance when it comes to your end-of-life planning. Next time we'll discuss the journey after a loss, some of the steps you'll need to take, things you'll need to keep in mind, items you'll need to gather, and individuals and agencies you'll need to contact. After that, we'll cover some of the financial changes that might be expected following the loss of a loved one. And in our final presentation, we will cover stages of grief and decision making and how those two things work together. The quote on the screen is essentially the whole purpose of today's presentation. As said in the Bigger Pockets Money podcast, every hour that you spend planning is a gift to your beneficiaries when you pass. You're taking tens of hours off of their plate for every hour you prepare. Planning in advance helps to ensure that your wishes and desires are known and also reduces the stress and guesswork that falls upon family members and loved ones when they have to make decisions surrounding end of life while they are also mourning a loss at the same time. The first thing that we'll talk about today is wills and trusts. When it comes to wills and estate planning, only a little over 30% of adults have wills or an estate plan in place, even though they are very, very important documents. In most cases, if you don't create a will, your estate will automatically go to your closest living relative. Wills and trusts are two popular ways to manage an estate after one passes, and we won't delve into all of the differences, but there are some key differences such as the involvement of the probate process, privacy, and the ability of debt collectors to leverage funds from the estate that are things you may want to consider when you're making the decision between a will or a trust. In terms of definitions, a will is a simple legal document that provides instructions on how to distribute property to beneficiaries after death, while a trust is a complex legal contract that allows you to transfer your property to an account to be managed by another person. So inevitably, your next question is, which one should I choose? Which is the best option for me? And it depends. As I mentioned earlier, I am not here to provide financial or legal advice, and everyone's situation is different. So it's very important that you consult with a trained professional on your specific situation. That said, there are some general things that might help you to decide, at least in the beginning, of which way you want to go, whether it is a will or a trust. So with wills, generally, they are cheaper, faster, simpler, and they are considered to be best, or at least better, for a smaller estate. When it comes to a trust, the pros on that side are that they are private, they are protected from creditors, they generally offer a little bit more control over your estate and how it is distributed, and they tend to be better for larger estates. Now, even though they are different in their contents and complexity, some people will actually have both. It might or may not make sense based on your specific situation, which is, again, why a trained financial and/or estate planner can be an asset in your end-of-life planning. So what happens if you pass away without an estate plan in place? If you pass away without a will or an estate plan in place, this is called passing away intestate. Now, we won't delve all the way into all of the nuance, all of the details on this slide, but I thought it was kind of interesting. So I wanted to present a table of what happens to your estate if you die without estate planning. And this table is specifically for Colorado. Now, you may or may not want your estate to be inherited by the person it will go to if you die intestate, which is again why estate planning is important to do in advance. Making a will tends to be a little bit easier than making a trust, but you can definitely do both all by yourself. Wills can be made easily online with free templates, but trusts are more complicated. Like I said, you can make a trust by yourself, but it might make more sense to contact an attorney or an estate planner to ensure that your wishes are delivered as you intended. Regardless of your choice, make sure that you check notary requirements to ensure that your document is viable. All right, so now that we know a little bit about wills and trusts and we understand some of the basics of estate planning, we'll get into advanced directives and powers of attorney. An advance directive is also known as a living will, and this is used when you are no longer able to communicate your decisions for yourself. This document states your wishes for end-of-life care, such as whether you would like to be kept alive on life support, resuscitated, what pain management you would and would not want, and your organ donation desires. This document needs 2 witnesses to be legally binding, and there are many templates and examples online that you can use to create your own advance directive. Now, it may surprise you, but anyone over the age of 18 should have at least an MD-POA, medical durable power of attorney, as well as an advance directive. If you're trying to figure out which advance directives are right for you, the state has an excellent decision-making chart, which is pictured below, and we'll also get into MD-POAs in just a sec. Now, a medical durable power of attorney appoints a person to make medical decisions if you are no longer able to speak for yourself. And as I was first learning about end-of-life planning, I was curious about the difference between an advance directive and an MD-POA. Why did I need both? If I've outlined my needs, why do I need to have somebody advocating for me as well? And it turns out that these two concepts work together. So the advance directive or living will specifies to doctors what care you would like to receive or not receive, while in cases of unforeseen choices that maybe haven't been covered by your advance directive, this is where that MD-POA would come into the picture to help make those decisions surrounding healthcare. Now, an agent who is the MD-POA must aid by the person's choices documented in a previously executed directive or living will, unless the living will or MD-POA document specifically grants an override right to that agent. The specific language of the document here is important, but in most cases, the POA's wants, desires, thoughts cannot supersede what you have set out for yourself in that advance directive. So with the MD-POA, responsibilities are only medical health related decisions. This might include care management, medical treatment decisions, and overall medical treatment choices. This document does not need to be witnessed or notarized, but you may want to have it witnessed and notarized to make it even stronger. Now, as uncomfortable as it may be, having this discussion about MD-POA as well as your end-of-life wishes is an important conversation to have with loved ones. When it does come to having these decisions, there's certain things you might want to think about and figure out before you get to the table, such as whether you want life-sustaining treatment, what kind of pain management you would like, do you want to donate your organs, are there any religious rituals that would be important to you? Make sure you have a conversation with the person you would like to be your MD-POA to ensure that they are comfortable with the responsibilities involved. Over time, let this individual know of changes to your health, as well as if you change your mind as to who you want to be in that role. When broaching the subject, you should also think about having a backup in mind in case the individual you have in mind is not comfortable with the responsibility tied to this role or they change their mind later on. Another role that you'll want to think about appointing someone to is durable financial power of attorney. This allows a person that you appoint to manage your financial affairs if you become incapacitated and are no longer able to do so. This might include paying bills, managing money, dealing with creditors, real estate, etc. It is not just for end-of-life planning. This could also come into play if, for example, you started experiencing dementia. And the last topic we'll dig into is some of the other planning and discussions that you might want to think about when it comes to end-of-life planning. So a really big thing that you might want to think about in advance is your funeral. Planning your funeral in advance or having a pre-need funeral is very helpful for many reasons, including that it reduces stress and the to-do list, as well as the emotional difficulty that your loved ones will be experiencing after you pass away. It also ensures that your plans are executed as you would like them to be and may reduce financial burden if you have begun paying for your funeral in advance. If you don't have a plan in place and you also don't have family or next of kin, or if you don't have a plan in place and you are unclaimed, the county and the Department of Human Services decides what happens with your remains, whether they are buried or cremated. There are many, many, many details to think about when it comes to planning your funeral. And again, whichever details you don't plan in advance will fall upon your loved ones to decide after you have passed away. Probably the biggest thing that you want to think about in the beginning is whether you would like to be buried or cremated. Would you like to be an organ donor? Would you like a funeral home or a mortuary? Funeral homes are typically more expensive and they generally offer a full range of services, including arranging and hosting the funeral, memorial gathering, helping place an obituary in the local paper. A mortuary, on the other hand, is typically less expensive and more focused on preparing the body for burial or cremation. Now, after you've decided this first step of whether you'd like to be buried or cremated, would you like to have a funeral or an end-of-life celebration? A funeral is generally a more traditional, formal, structured event that often includes religious and cultural rituals. It's usually held at a funeral home where the deceased's body is usually presented and placed front and center in a coffin or an urn. At a funeral, a religious leader or funeral director leads the service, which typically includes a eulogy and may also include prayers, poems, things like that. Attendees at this type of service will often wear black. On the other hand, a celebration of life is a more modern event that may not include religious or cultural elements. It isn't often held at a funeral home, but at a more casual and upbeat location. In these, the body is not often present and there's little to no structure to the event. This event might include a slideshow and allow attendees to share their favorite stories about the deceased friend or relative. People usually dress a little bit more casually and maybe wear something that honors the deceased, like their favorite color. Other things to think about are location. Where would you like services? If you'd like to be buried, where would you like your final resting place to be? If you'd like to be cremated, where would you like your ashes to go? It may sound gauche, but thinking about the costs related to end-of-life plans may also help you make some of these decisions. Consider this when you think about the urn, casket services, rental costs for locations, and your burial plot. If you will be buried or would like to have a viewing of your body, consider what you'd like to wear. Also, consider writing your own obituary. Who knows you better than you? This list is not meant to be comprehensive, and you should get as detail-oriented as you feel comfortable getting because, again, the details that you do not decide for yourself, someone else will have to decide after you have passed away. On a less overwhelming note, you should periodically check your beneficiary designations on insurance policies, retirement accounts, and investment accounts. For investment accounts, you should ensure that you have set a beneficiary and designated your accounts as transferable on death, or TOD. For bank accounts, you should select a beneficiary and make your accounts POD, or payable on death. It is important to periodically check and update your designations. If a beneficiary that you have designated passes and you don't change the beneficiary before you pass, your accounts will be subject to the probate process. Now, an inventory is a critical piece of end-of-life planning, and particularly an inventory that has your accounts, assets, as well as other things that a loved one might need access to. So this list might include what individual and joint assets you have, bank accounts, and the information to log in, investment accounts, bills, debts, expenses, income sources, social media accounts, birth and marriage certificates, as well as passwords. Congrats! We've covered a lot, so let's go over it quickly. So today we covered a lot of things that you can think about in advance to ensure that your end-of-life plans go according to plan and reduce some of the burden and emotional heartache that your loved ones will already be experiencing. We talked about documents to prepare and discuss, such as wills and trusts, advance directives, durable financial power of attorney, durable medical power of attorney. We also talked about other things that you should consider doing, like funeral planning, investment accounts, switching them to POD and TOD, as well as creating an inventory. If you're now ready to begin your estate planning journey, here's some resources based in Colorado that might be helpful. First, we have Justia, which provides estate planning lawyers. Next, we have the Funeral Consumer Society of Colorado, which provides educational materials that will help you to begin planning your funeral, your end-of-life service, all of those things tied to that. The Conversation Project has amazing resources for helping you to begin having those conversations with friends, family, and loved ones. And then lastly, we have the Bar Association as well as Colorado Legal Services, which may help you with the legal aspects of end-of-life planning. Thank you again for joining me. My name is Jessica Zawadsky. This presentation has been brought to you by ElderWatch, a 20-plus year collaboration between the Colorado Attorney General as well as AARP. Make sure you join us next time as we continue our end of life series. In our next episode, we'll be talking about some of the steps in the journey that come after losing a loved one.